Most men get rejected because they ask the wrong way. They push instead of connecting. They approach intimacy like a transaction rather than an invitation. But the right questions do not create pressure. They create attraction. When you do it right, she does not pull away. She leans in. And that is the difference between a man who struggles and a man who naturally draws women toward him. I am going to start this video with something honest. Most men do not fear intimacy. They fear rejection. They fear that moment when they make a move and the woman pulls back, turns cold, or says something that instantly kills the vibe. But what if I told you something? There is a way to ask a woman for intimacy without sounding desperate, without pressure, and without facing rejection. A way that uses psychology, not manipulation, not force, but the understanding of how women emotionally decide when they are ready and who they want to be ready with. And that is exactly what you are about to learn. Now, before we get deep into this, let me hook you in with something almost no one knows. Women do not reject intimacy. Women reject the feeling attached to it. If the emotional experience feels wrong, the answer is no. If it feels right, the answer comes naturally. And the trick you are about to learn makes it feel right. Every man who gets rejected for intimacy usually makes one of these mistakes. He asks too directly. He asks too soon. He asks with nervous energy. Or he asks without building emotional tension first. And here is the secret. Women do not decide intimacy logically. They decide emotionally. The moment she feels safe, understood, desired, but not pressured, emotionally aligned, the door opens. Women experience desire differently than men. For most men, attraction is visual and immediate. You see someone attractive and your body responds instantly. But for women, attraction is layered. It builds. It accumulates through context, emotion, safety, and anticipation. This is why a woman can meet a man, feel nothing, and then 3 weeks later find herself completely drawn to him. It is not that she was playing games. It is that her attraction needed time to develop through emotional experiences. Understanding this changes everything about how you approach intimacy. Because if you know that her desire builds through emotional layering, then you stop rushing. You stop pushing. You start creating the conditions where her desire naturally escalates. Let us start with the most powerful principle. You never ask a woman for intimacy directly. Women do not respond to direct proposals. They respond to emotional invitation. And there is a massive difference. Asking directly creates pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance turns into rejection. But when you invite emotionally and subtly, you shift the entire dynamic. She does not feel like you are forcing anything. It feels natural. She feels like she is making the decision. And when a woman feels like the decision is hers, she rarely rejects it. Think about the last time someone tried to sell you something aggressively. The moment you felt pressured, what happened? You pulled back, right? Even if you were interested before, the pressure killed it. The same principle applies to intimacy. When a man asks directly, "Do you want to come back to my place? Or should we take this further?" He is creating a transaction. He is making her weigh the decision consciously. And the conscious mind is where doubt lives. But when you create an emotional invitation, you are speaking to her subconscious. You are creating a feeling, not a question. And feelings do not get rejected the same way questions do. Here is the psychology behind the first technique. Give her space to walk into intimacy emotionally. How do you do that? Simple. You create an environment where she feels safe with you, connected to you, and curious about you. Women say yes to intimacy when 3 emotional switches turn on: safety, trust, and anticipation. If even one of these is not active, she holds back. But here is the good part. You do not need to beg for these. You create them. Safety does not mean she needs to know you for years. Safety means she feels like you are not going to judge her, pressure her, or make her feel like she made a mistake. Safety is created through your emotional stability. When you are grounded and not reactive, she feels safe. Trust builds when your words match your actions. When you say you are not trying to rush anything and then you actually do not rush anything. When you respect her boundaries without making her feel bad for having them. Trust is the foundation that allows vulnerability. Anticipation is the chemical magic. It is the buildup of tension that makes intimacy feel electric instead of mechanical. Anticipation is created through restraint, through suggestion, through the space between what is and what could be. Most men focus entirely on creating attraction and completely ignore these three switches. They try to be impressive, funny, and confident, all good things. But they forget that a woman needs to feel safe, trusting, and anticipating before any of that attraction converts into intimacy. The second technique is the soft withdrawal effect. This is one of the smoothest psychological methods ever. Here is how it works. Instead of leaning in towards intimacy, you gently lean out. Not in a rude way, not in a cold way, just in a way that shows you are comfortable with connection, but not demanding it. This does two things. First, it removes pressure instantly. Second, it creates emotional space where she starts leaning in. Women feel safe with the man who does not rush intimacy, not because he does not want it, but because he respects energy. When she feels you are not trying to get something, she starts moving towards you on her own. And that is exactly when rejection disappears, because now it is her idea. Consider how this looks in real time. You are sitting close to a woman. There is chemistry. The conversation is flowing. Most men at this point would escalate physically. Move closer, touch more, try to kiss her. But what happens? She often pulls back slightly. Not because she is not interested, but because the escalation felt like pressure. Now imagine this instead. You are in that same moment, and instead of leaning in, you lean back slightly. You pause. You look away for a moment. You create just a tiny bit of space. What happens in her mind? Suddenly the pressure is gone, and in that absence of pressure, she becomes aware of her own desire. She thinks, wait, why did he pull back? Does he not want this? And without even realizing it, she starts leaning in. She initiates the touch. She closes the distance. This is the soft withdrawal effect in action. You are not rejecting her. You are not playing games. You are simply demonstrating that you are comfortable with the natural flow of energy, and that comfort makes her feel safe enough to pursue. The third technique builds anticipation, the strongest desire trigger in female psychology. This is the implanted thought shift. This is subtle, psychological, and extremely effective. You do not ask for intimacy. You simply give her a thought that naturally leads her toward the idea. You use soft, emotionally suggestive statements like, I really like the way our energy feels together, or you are surprisingly easy to be close to, or you have this calmness that makes everything feel natural. None of these ask for anything, none of these push, but all of these plant a seed. Women respond to feelings, not instructions. When she feels something around you, intimacy becomes her curiosity, not your request. And that difference is everything. Here is what is happening psychologically. When you use these statements, you are helping her become conscious of feelings she is already experiencing but has not put into words yet. When you say, I really like the way our energy feels together, you are not introducing a new idea. You are articulating something she has been sensing. And when you articulate her own feelings back to her, she thinks, yes, exactly. That is what I am feeling too. This creates alignment, and alignment is magnetic. There is also a principle in psychology called priming. When you introduce certain words or concepts into a conversation, they become more accessible in the other person's mind. So when you casually mention energy, closeness, connection, natural, these words start coloring how she interprets the moment. She is not being manipulated. She is being guided toward awareness of what is already present between you. And that is what transforms a nice conversation into an intimate connection. The next part is important, maybe the most important in this entire video, because men mess this up constantly. You must let her feel safe in her feminine energy. Intimacy for women is tied to emotions, but specifically to feminine emotions. Softness, trust, warmth, vulnerability, openness. A woman cannot enter feminine energy if a man stays nervous, tense, overly sexual, or overly aggressive. Your job is simple. You hold masculine calm. Not forceful, not sexual, not needy, just calm. When a woman feels this calmness in a man, something magical happens. Her guard drops. And when her guard drops, saying yes becomes natural. Not pressured, not forced, just natural. Masculine calm is often misunderstood. It is not stoic silence. It is not being emotionless or detached. Masculine calm is the energy of a man who is present, comfortable in his body, and not anxious about outcomes. It is the difference between a man who is constantly checking for approval, "Is this okay? Do you like this? Should I do more?" and a man who is simply being, allowing the moment to unfold naturally. Women are incredibly sensitive to energy. They can feel when a man is nervous, when he is trying too hard, when he is desperate for validation. And all of those energies push her into her masculine, into her thinking, analyzing, protecting mode. But when you maintain calm, when you are grounded and unhurried, she softens. She relaxes. She enters her feminine, which is where desire lives. This is also why women are attracted to men who seem experienced. Not because experience itself is sexy, but because experienced men tend to be calm. They are not frantically trying to figure out what to do next. They are just flowing. Now, let us talk about the moment most men screw up when they are about to ask. Here is the psychology that saves you from rejection. Never ask for a yes. Ask for a feeling. If you ask for a yes, you risk a no. When you ask for a feeling, you invite vulnerability. Instead of saying, "Do you want to?" you say something like, "Does this feel too fast for you? Or do you feel comfortable here with me?" See the difference. Instead of pressuring her, you are giving her emotional control. And when you offer control, she feels safer. And when she feels safer, she chooses intimacy herself. This is the difference between rejection and connection. This technique works because it completely reframes the dynamic. You are not asking her to accept or reject you. You are asking her to check in with her own feelings. And that is a much easier question to answer honestly. When you ask, "Do you want to come back to my place?" she has to consider, what will he think if I say yes? What will he think if I say no? What does this mean? Am I ready? Is this too fast? But when you ask, "Does this feel too fast for you?" she only has to consider one thing. How do I actually feel right now? And here is the beautiful part. If she says a little bit, "Yeah, you have not been rejected. You have been given information," you can respond with, "That is totally fine. I am not trying to rush anything. I am really enjoying just being here with you." Now, she feels heard, respected, and safe. And often within minutes, she will be the one escalating because you removed all pressure. The next technique is where the real psychology kicks in. Mirror her desire back to her. Here is what almost no man understands. A woman does not decide intimacy based on how much you want her. She decides intimacy based on how much she feels you want her, but without losing your composure. Meaning too much desire equals pressure. Too little desire equals disinterest. Balanced desire equals attraction. So when she leans closer, touches you, laughs more, looks in your eyes, or gets softer around you, you simply mirror the energy. Not more, not less. This sends one subconscious message. We are on the same wavelength. This alignment is one of the strongest psychological signals for intimacy. Mirroring is a deeply hardwired social mechanism. From infancy, humans learn connection through mirroring. When a baby smiles and the parent smiles back, the baby learns, "I am seen. I am understood. I am safe." The same mechanism is active in adult intimacy. When a woman shows you vulnerability or desire and you mirror it back, not overwhelm it, not ignore it, but match it, she feels understood at a primal level. This is also where most men fail. They either under-respond, making the woman feel foolish for showing interest, or they over-respond, making her feel like she opened the floodgates she cannot control. The key is calibration. If she touches your arm, you touch hers. If she holds eye contact for 3 seconds, you hold it for 3 seconds. If she laughs and leans in, you laugh and lean in. This creates a dance. And in that dance, intimacy escalates naturally without anyone having to ask for it. Now, let us talk about the final step, the moment that closes the deal without ever sounding desperate. Moments are emotional. Moments feel real. Moments feel natural, not forced. So instead of asking for intimacy, you simply acknowledge the moment. This feels really nice. It is crazy how comfortable this feels. You have a really gentle energy right now. When you highlight the moment, you are not asking for intimacy. You are letting the moment invite it. Women follow emotion, and emotion lives in the moment. This removes pressure, removes awkwardness, and removes rejection entirely. And that is how you do it. Here is why this final technique is so powerful. You are removing yourself as the agent. You are not the one wanting something. The moment itself is creating the desire. This is a subtle but crucial psychological shift. When you say, "Do you want to?" you are the one wanting. When you say, "This feels really nice," the feeling itself becomes the focal point. And women are much more comfortable following feelings than following requests. Feelings feel authentic. Requests feel transactional. By naming the moment, you are also creating a shared experience. It is not you wanting her. It is both of you experiencing something together. And that shared experience is the foundation of genuine intimacy. The philosopher Heraclitus, though not a Stoic, observed that the way up and the way down are one and the same. In intimacy, the path to her is not through pressure, but through presence. The way to her heart is not through asking, but through being. The psychologist Carl Rogers, a pioneer of humanistic psychology, emphasized that the deepest human need is to be understood and accepted. When you create an environment where she feels understood and accepted, intimacy becomes not a request but a natural outcome. The philosopher Martin Heidegger, who wrote extensively about being and presence, argued that authentic relationships require a kind of being with that is open, receptive, and without pretense. When you bring that quality of presence to your interactions, you create the conditions for genuine connection. The French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir wrote that one is not born a woman, but becomes one. And part of that becoming involves a complex relationship with desire, safety, and trust. Understanding this complexity, rather than trying to simplify or bypass it, is what makes you a man who truly understands women. The psychologist Erich Fromm, known for his work on love and human connection, wrote that love is an activity, not a passive affect. It is a standing in, not a falling for. When you approach intimacy as an activity, as something you create and cultivate rather than something you take or demand, you shift from a consumer to a creator. And creators are far more attractive than consumers. The philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty wrote that the body is our general medium for having a world. When you learn to read her body, to understand the signals she is sending through posture, touch, and gaze, you are reading her world. You are understanding her reality. And that understanding is the foundation of intimacy. The existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre wrote that we are condemned to be free. And with that freedom comes the burden of choice. When you ask for intimacy, you are asking her to make a choice. But when you create the conditions for intimacy, you are allowing her to choose freely, without pressure. And free choice is always more powerful than coerced agreement. The psychologist Abraham Maslow, known for his hierarchy of needs, placed love and belonging just above safety and below esteem. When you provide safety, you are meeting her foundational need. And when you meet that need, you move into the territory where love and belonging can flourish. The writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley observed that the more powerful the inspiration, the more intense the intellect must be to avoid self-deception. When you approach intimacy with awareness rather than deception, you are honoring both her intelligence and her emotions. And that honor is deeply attractive. The philosopher Baruch Spinoza wrote that the emotions of hope and fear are inseparable. When a woman feels hope in your presence and fear in your absence, you have created a powerful emotional dynamic. But the key is not to exploit that dynamic, but to be worthy of it. To be the man who turns hope into trust and fear into safety. The psychologist Carl Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When you approach intimacy with the intention of mutual transformation rather than personal gain, you create a reaction that transforms both of you. And that transformation is what makes connection meaningful. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote that we should not be ashamed of our suffering, but proud of it. In the context of intimacy, this means being unafraid of vulnerability, unafraid of the risk of rejection, unafraid of the uncertainty that comes with opening yourself to another person. When you embrace that vulnerability, you become a man who is truly alive. And aliveness is magnetic. The writer and poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote that love consists in this, that two solitudes protect and touch and greet each other. When you approach intimacy as a greeting between solitudes rather than a conquest or a transaction, you honor the sacredness of her individuality and your own. That honoring is what creates the deepest connection. The philosopher Emmanuel Levinas wrote that the face of the other is what calls us to responsibility. When you look at her and see not just a body or a potential partner, but a person with her own fears, desires, and story, you are responding to that call. And that response is what makes you a man of integrity. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust and wrote about meaning, observed that what gives life meaning is the capacity to love and to find meaning in suffering. When you approach intimacy as a source of meaning rather than just pleasure, you elevate the entire experience. You make it sacred. The philosopher Plotinus wrote that the soul is in a state of motion until it rests in the beloved. When you become someone she can rest in, someone who provides safety and presence, you become the beloved. And that is the ultimate goal. If you learn something new today, if this opened your eyes a little, if it made you look at women differently, then do not just leave. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more dark psychology and real-world wisdom. And after you finish this video, do not forget to check out the other videos on this channel. There is a playlist specifically designed to help you understand female psychology at a deeper level. It covers everything from building emotional safety to creating lasting attraction. The link is in the description. Take the time to watch it. Your future self will thank you.